Hey guys, welcome to the analysis for March 15th. It's about 3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here. So we are about an hour and a half before the market closes for the week. And again, because it's Friday, we'll be going over the weekly charts today, covering some of the longer term moves. And I think there's a lot of good stuff to look at on these longer term charts. You can see just kind of a better look at the different levels on the euro dollar here, for instance. And I think that this will add a lot of clarity to the market by going over the major currencies on the weekly chart. So I think it's going to be a great analysis. Lots of things to look at. And I hope you enjoy it and it's helpful for your trading, especially as you kick back off next week as the market opens. I hope you'll have a better sense of clarity and direction for the market, and that will increase your probability and profitability as a trader. Alright guys, before we jump into the charts, let's take a quick look at our terms. And basically they're in place just to say that we are not providing investment advice that would be against the United States regulations for us, and so we want to be clear that we're not doing that, that we're just giving you an educational idea of what we're thinking about the market, and that any decisions that are made to buy or sell or anything like that are totally up to you. Alright guys, so please do understand that, and if you need to pause and read through all that material, I'm going to go ahead and get back into the charts now. Alright guys, so again, looking at this weekly chart, we've talked about the reversal and the momentum heading down recently on the euro, coming back from the big up move here, a sharp reversal right around 137.50, and it has continued pretty nicely, as you can see, for the past several weeks. A little bit of a stall here, a little bit of a stall last week, and then this week actually starting to make some bullish ground for the first time since we hit our top around 137.50. And so, of course, the question is, are we stalling out? Are we trying to turn and resume the uptrend? Is this the start of a resumption of the uptrend? Or is this just stalling out, catching its breath, before we make a move to the downside or a continuation of the downside from the original reversal up here? And really, there's no way of knowing that. As you guys know, we don't pretend like we can really foresee what's going to happen in the market. But there are some things that you can do to point out and to kind of be reactionary when it happens so that you can be an effective trader. So one thing, and the most important thing that I always tell traders to do, is have these levels clearly drawn on your chart so you know what's going on and that it makes sense to you. This is a major area of support and resistance. You can see here, both in recent and a little bit farther back, how strong this area is. And so if price is breaking through here, that gives us a pretty good idea that this actually does want to continue the uptrend and move in a bullish way. And that's not just price kind of chopping, it's actually making a deliberate movement toward a higher high. And so that's a very important level to note. So for this week, we have not closed above that, just barely coming into the bottom of the zone. So right now, that doesn't mean a whole lot. If we get a strong rejection and a continuation next week, that'll give us an idea that the reversal wants to continue. Whereas if we get a clear break, perhaps a break, a retest, and a continuation, which is the pattern that I always tell you to look for, that, as it continues from this next retest, is a pretty clear indication that the euro dollar is trying to increase its upward move and make a higher high. This uptrend is still intact, and that all we have here is a pullback before a continuation. This is a very possible move because of all this momentum in the uptrend that's very clearly formed here. Now, of course, there's going to be times where it sets up very nicely, goes up, retests, maybe starts to continue and then reverses anyway. Stuff like that will always happen. And the market is just not predictable enough to say if such and such happens that it really is going to do this. But all we can do as traders is get a good idea and then trade off of the probability formed on that good idea. There's a lot of factors we can look at, but the critical factors, in my opinion, are going to be how the market's moving through these areas and the momentum that it's finding, the overall strength of the euro, and then the overall strength of the dollar. If the euro is extremely strong, the euro dollar, of course, is likely to move up. But if the U.S. dollar is pretty neutral, maybe a little bit strong, but pretty neutral, then we're probably actually not going to want to trade euro dollar, even though it might be resuming this uptrend. We're actually probably going to want to pair the euro with a weaker currency. So it's important to note that the charts is one factor. It's important to look at, but you also have to look at the overall strength of the euro and the overall strength of the dollar to get an idea of really where the highest probability trades are going to be. So again, important to take multiple factors into consideration here and really understand to the best of your ability what the market is doing and where it's really trying to going, and then reacting and capitalizing on that action and that deliberate movement within the market. All right, guys. Next, I have this US yen weekly chart up, and nothing new here. It's straight up with a little bit of stalling action in this period and a little bit of stalling action this week. And unless we get a pullback into a good support zone or into this really steep trend line, which is even hard to count on because it's so straight up, but a pullback in any type of support and then a continuation back to the upside would still lead me to take a long. As far as being overextended, you've probably heard me say I don't really buy into that too much. I do believe that it can't go straight up forever, that there has to be pullbacks. But as far as a price where it just can't go above, I don't really buy into that. I think the US yen has a lot more room to go if it wants to. We can look back and really see. If we go all the way up to here, how high it can really go. 125 is a high, and then if we keep going, let's really go back here. Here we go. 147 is a price that US yen has been to. So when you look at it right now, still a very steep move. You can see here steep move, but nothing near where price has been before. So I don't buy into the idea that price is overextended, that has to crash any moment. I think it could still go much higher, and I'm just going to wait for the technical clues to point that out. If it does make a bounce and show a good sign of moving up, I will certainly not hesitate to jump on and take a long position on the US yen, or depending on what other currencies are strong, maybe a different yen cross. But regardless, not afraid to short the yen, which is what's going on US or AUD or Euro yen would be doing. So just waiting to see if we get a good pullback. We already have a nice centering of this bar. We'll see if it goes a little deeper next week, and then could get a long setup. Speaking of pairs going straight down or straight up, pound dollar is crashing, as we all know, from the 162.50 zone up here, falling pretty much straight down. Stalled here for a little bit, hardly stalled at all at our next level, and found 149.040 as a support zone right now, where we finally are getting a decent bounce. And if you scroll back a little bit, you can see this level is not a huge level either. Some support here. And some here, which is kind of where I came up with this level, but not really even a major level. And so the question is, and it's the one that I've been posing for a while, are we going to get a full retest to one of these other major levels to here? Are we going to get a retest all the way up here? Are we going to see price bounce and come back to a critical area before going lower or going higher, whatever it's going to do? Right now, I'm still not so sure about that. We're kind of already starting to decline on this little series of moves where it came up, and kind of maybe building a wedge where it could easily just break out and go lower from this point. So pound is one again. It's kind of like that yen I was just talking about. It's certainly very far down, but it could go much lower. And so it's another one where you have to anticipate and be willing to trade in either direction, just based on what the obvious technical signs are concluding. And if we do get a nice break or a break retest and continuation move, then it could be a great short for even the next lower price. There's not really a lot of major support zones below here, because the price is not down there very often, so there's not a lot of building of clusters of support and resistance. So it could easily fall from a technical standpoint, fall very low, and not have to deal with a lot of major levels that could hold price up. So pound dollar, it had a stronger week this week certainly than it has in a long time, but even towards the end of the week you can see falling off and moving a bit lower. Still above the 150 area, but who knows how long that'll last. We'll see, and we'll track it next week. But I certainly would not be surprised with a break to even lower lows on this pound dollar. There's nothing that really makes me believe that this is ready for reversal back up toward 155 or 160. I don't have a strong sentiment in that direction, so I'm willing to trade it. If it goes lower, that's perfectly fine with me. Alright, next we have the AUD US dollar weekly chart, and as you know probably from just watching the daily analysis, we've seen a lot of AUD strength this week. A very powerful bar on the weekly chart, finding again this support zone where we've seen very recently prices found support and bounced strongly from, sometimes stronger than others, and looks like we'll get up. Could be testing this trend line in just 2 weeks, whereas this one you can see took much longer to get up into that area. But again, it's interesting because last week, or 2 weeks ago I should say, we had the momentum moving down and looking for an opportunity where this may actually break and go toward our bigger zone here at the bottom, a little bit longer term zone, down toward 96 or 96.50, and instead we just got a fake to the bottom and a strong move back to the upside, coming in again toward this trend line that's been intact for a while. And so now it just seems quite obvious that this wants to move up. Very well could test this trend line and come down again for another try at this level. So we'll keep watching the odd. For those of you who got long early on and were holding that, excellent job. As a trade that I got in on pretty low down here, not as low as I'd like, but pretty low, and got my buy-in after this fake out and was pretty happy with that. So hopefully this thing will continue right into our trend line area. And then again, we'd anticipate a bounce because this trend line has held price in very respectfully so far, and I wouldn't really expect anything less. It doesn't seem like the odd is likely to build enough momentum just to crash through and make higher highs. It's been consistently moving slower, and overall going down, as you can see. If you pick this as the point where it started, this wedge, that's April of 2011. It's been consistently, steadily moving down since then. Now, we did have a more powerful bar this week than we're typically used to, but you can see even from where these massive weekly bars were forming a few years ago or a year and a half ago, we are just in such a more tight range. So this bar looks like a large, powerful bar, but actually you compare it to some of these bars and these bars, it's quite small. And just shows you how the range of the odd is shrinking, and there's less power in the odd strength when it's moving up and less power in the odd weakness when it's moving down. So again, that just leads me to believe that we're in a pretty sideways market, whether you look at it as a sideways channel like this or a wedge like I typically look at it this way. There's just not a lot of reason for me to believe that we're going to get the powerful breakouts until they happen. I don't anticipate that the odd is just going to gain strength and fly up to 1-1 again or anything like that. If it happens, that's fine. If we get a strong burst and a continuation of odd strength, then that'll be great, and I'll look forward to trading that as a long-term trading possibility. But it's just important to note that the movements have been lower and smaller, and so because of that reason, you have to be prepared to trade within those market conditions, which are tighter, more channel type moves, especially on the odd over the past year. So again, sorry to ramble on about that. Just want to be clear on what I mean when I'm saying that I don't anticipate major moves. It's because the range is smaller and the market conditions have changed pretty dramatically for the Australian dollar recently. Alright, let's head over to a different pair. Alright, next we have this USDCAD, another one we'll be talking about because it's been in this area, which I've been talking about as a potential area for price to bounce down. Was not sure if it would respect this trend line or if the move up would actually continue and break through some of these areas, but in fact does look like it's respecting that area, and actually a really nice bearish week, as yesterday and today were quite bearish on the USDCAD. And so what I've been talking about is the potential for this to move down, come back into our 101 area as a major area that has pulled price into it in the past. You can see all of this in the past. Here marks the bottom of the range, so definitely an area of support and resistance kind of clustered together, and I think it's a good area that typically will pull price into it when price starts moving that direction. So not surprisingly, I am short on the USD CAD, short probably in the middle of this weekly bar, a little bit lower even than the middle, as it broke through this recent bottom. And so not up huge really on that trade yet, but looking for this as my target, hoping that we'll get some momentum continuation on the USD CAD next week. Sometimes USD CAD struggles quite a while before making moves, and it did, especially when you look at the 4-hour and the daily chart. Struggled here a long time, but looks like it may have started that move, and so what I'm hoping for is just some continuation into this area, which I think is a great area to pull price into. So that's USD CAD. There's not a whole lot here other than a very slight downtrend, almost a sideways market pulling price in. Not a real bottom here. You can kind of draw this as the bottom, maybe here, or if you want to go slightly lower so you're not through the middle of the bottom candles there, here, but you can see that it doesn't really test the lines. There's a bottom here, and here, and here, and here. So we don't really have a clear bottom defined. What we do have is a clear shallow trend defined from the top, which makes the top a little bit easier to trade from than the bottom. Speaking of the bottom, we do have a more recent type of trend forming here. So it has only been tested a few times and just starting just based on this one hook back in continuation. So not a lot of confirmation of that trend yet, but it is something to note on the USD CAD. Alright, next we have my dreaded Euro Pound chart. As you know, I've been rather frustrated with the lack of movement in the Euro Pound, as we've had 4 weeks in a row, both attempt to break down and up and try to make a move here, but just have not done so. If you scroll back, you'll see that this area, this red line that I have here, around 87.90 or just 88, to round it off even more, is a pretty strong level. So it's not too surprising that price struggled here. What is surprising is that we didn't get a strong rejection when price struggled there, or a rejection and then an eventual break, because there was so much momentum here, and even a large bearish momentum here. Just the movement on the Euro Pound was so good because of the difference in the strength of the Euro and the Pound. Typically the Euro and the Pound run together and they create some movements like this, but lately they've been so different that we've seen huge moves like this, strong moves like this, continuations like this. It's just been a very strong movement, and then all of a sudden we're back trapped, where Euro and Pound are kind of not gaining any ground against one another, and so we're just sitting here in the middle and not really accomplishing anything in terms of overall movement. So because of that's going on, I still think that we need to wait on the Euro Pound. When it does make a strong move in one direction, then we might find a really great trader opportunity, and whether that's trading it all the way back down into one of these lower fibs, or maybe it's this trend line catching up to it at some point, or a break higher and trading it to the upside, really does not matter to me. I mean, typically as you watch my analysis, direction doesn't mean a lot to me as long as there's profit potential and room in the direction that it's going, and we do have that in either direction on the Euro Pound. So I'm just waiting for deliberate direction, and then I think that the Euro Pound could provide a great trading opportunity when that happens. Alright guys, and then to finish up the analysis, I'd like to talk about a pair that we don't talk about a whole lot, but something that happened recently I think is critical on the EURAUD, is that we broke back through the trend line here, moving in the downside, and the EURAUD a bit on this uptrend, and overall very bearish pair. When you look at the very long term, if you take a monthly chart, it's extremely bearish over the long term period of time, but we had this strong up move, and had talked about it before in the daily analysis, and so recently, as the AUD has gained a little bit of strength and the euro obviously gaining weakness, we've seen a really strong fall from this. And so the reason I think this is important to mention is because of that long-term bearishness. Again, here, I'll just scroll back just to make the point here a little bit. You can see how bearish this pair is over the long-term period of time. And so with all that, downside, you can see that this really just looks like a small pullback in the grand scheme of things. And if you notice, little pullbacks like this in the past and breaks have led to much lower lows, and so because of that, I think it's important to note that this could be a break that's actually pretty critical in leading to the longer term low of this very bearish pair. And so it does still have some areas, as you can see, to deal with. We have some support that has built on the recent move up that the EURAUD will have to deal with. Sorry, my charts are a little crazy when I zoom that far out. But we have some areas that price will have to deal with, like this one right here is a bottom, and even this one where it's currently right at now. However, there's a very long-term potential here if we see the continuation, because this could very well lead to a lower low from that massive long-term trend that I just showed you. And if you look from current price now to just the bottom is about 950 pips, so a pretty huge move just from there, let alone the possibility of making a lower low and going to all-time lows actually on the EURAUD. So just something to think about and to take note of. Not that there's necessarily a trade set up now, but certainly I think worth having in the back of your mind is this EURAUD. Alright guys, and that's it for the analysis. I hope that it was helpful, and again that it will serve as a great benefit for you to increase your training and your thinking as you attack the charts and the trading next week. And I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch it. Please feel free to leave any comments or questions below, and if you don't mind taking a minute to tweet it or share it on Facebook, I greatly appreciate that. Alright guys, talk to you Monday.